So friends, you must have heard in the news that the trade talks between India and the United States have collapsed. The trade deal that was going to happen between India and the United States has now been put on hold. Why did this happen? You must have heard that claims are being made from the American side that this trade deal was halted because India's Prime Minister Modi did not call the US President Donald Trump. How much truth is there in these claims? What is the reality behind such dramatic and sensational news? Let us talk about this. Please pay attention to the blackboard here. You'll be able to understand properly. As we have seen in the media, this issue is being oversimplified. It is being presented as if the trade deal did not move forward because India's Prime Minister did not personally reach out to the American President. So as to say that because Trump was allegedly ignored by India, the trade deal could not move forward. Look, there is no doubt that in Trump's second term, such a political environment has developed where countries that massage Trump's ego or praise him have a higher chance of seeing deals move forward quickly. And where Trump feels that he is being disrespected or ignored, backlash from him is almost certain. This has definitely been seen in recent times. But to say that a trade deal between two strategic partners stopped just because a phone call was not made from India to the United States is an oversimplification. In geopolitics, trade deals between two strategic partners are not stopped in this manner. It is not as if only two individuals are involved in such trade deals. Multiple ministries are involved in these deals. There are many factors at play. Powerful industrial lobbies are involved behind these deals. Several parliamentary approvals are required. And domestic politics plays a very important role in such agreements. So remember this, if a trade deal between two major countries comes to a halt, the main reason would be key disagreements between the two countries. There will certainly be some sensitive issues on which consensus could not be reached. This is where a deadlock occurs. The dramatic coverage we see in the media is mostly psychological games. These are tactics to pressure the other country. It is absolutely not true that the trade deal stopped only because Prime Minister Modi did not call Donald Trump. In reality, there are many roadblocks that have stalled the India-US trade deal. The most sensitive issue among them is agriculture. The United States wants maximum access to the Indian market. It wants India to open its markets to American agricultural products. The US also wants fewer restrictions on genetically modified products coming from America. Now, India does not want to do this because it directly goes against India's economic and political interests. Because if the United States dumps its cheap farm products into India, Indian farmers will not be able to compete. You see, India and the United States have completely different farming systems. In the US, farming is mostly done by very large corporations. They own thousands of acres of land. They use advanced machinery. They receive strong government support, which allows American farmers to produce in bulk at very low costs. After that, this agricultural produce is ready to be dumped into India. In India, where the agricultural situation is completely different. Most farmers in India are small or marginal farmers. Nearly half of India's population depends on farming as its main source of income. Indian farmers do not receive the same level of government support that American farmers receive. So when American agricultural products enter India, Indian farmers will not be able to compete with them. Opening the market to American agricultural products is therefore not in the interest of India's small and marginal farmers. Obviously, no government wants to be seen as going against farmers, because politically this would be extremely dangerous. This makes agriculture a very sensitive issue. Opening the market to American agricultural products also goes against India's food security. Indian farmers will not be able to compete. American products will flood the market. This will not be good for food security because it goes against self-sufficiency. India would become dependent on American food imports. We have seen in the past what kind of political pressure arises when a country becomes dependent on food imports. We have not forgotten the evil colonial era policies that led to famines in India, affecting millions of people. Therefore, India very well understands how important it is to protect its food sector. It understands how important it is to protect agriculture. Any country that becomes dependent on foreign nations for food imports becomes highly vulnerable. Sooner or later, the foreign country will take advantage of this strategic vulnerability. This becomes especially dangerous during wars or supply chain shocks, like those seen during the pandemic. In such situations, dependence on foreign countries for food imports can prove to be disastrous. Foreign countries can impose sanctions, restrict food supplies, apply pressure, and force political concessions. That is why no matter which government is in power in India, it will not suddenly open its markets to foreign agricultural products. It will not suddenly expose its farmers to global competition without providing major safeguards. You need to understand that farmers are a very large voter base in India. We have seen how farm distress leads to social unrest. We saw this during the farm laws episode. There were long protests, and eventually the government was forced to repeal the farm laws. So agriculture is a very sensitive issue for India's political and social stability. It needs to be handled carefully. India's position is clear. It will provide limited market access. It will open its markets gradually. It will protect small and marginal farmers. It will protect farmers' livelihoods. The United States does not like this because it goes against American corporate interests. America is unhappy with India's resistance to opening its markets to US agricultural products. This is because India is not ready to compromise. The Indian government is fully aware of the economic and social risks involved. So agriculture is a major point of disagreement between India and the United States. Until this issue is resolved, even if Prime Minister Modi calls Trump 10 times, the trade deal will not move forward. After agriculture, the second issue is medical devices. India wants to keep its healthcare affordable. So for some important medical devices, such as heart stents and knee implants, India caps their prices. These medical devices are life-saving. India has imposed pricing and regulatory controls on them. The United States is not happy with this. It wants these controls to be removed. Why? Because due to these controls and price caps imposed by India, the profit margins of American companies are reduced. Most of the global giants that manufacture medical devices are American companies. They argue that if they earn higher profits, they can invest more in research and innovation. They say that if another country imposes price caps, their profits will decline. That's why the United States is not happy with such trade restrictions. It is in favor of the free market. India's position, however, is that healthcare should not be a luxury. It should not happen that a life-saving medical device, such as a stent, is imported cheaply and then sold at exorbitant prices, so that the hospitals and distributors earn huge margins on such products. That is not good. Keeping life-saving medical devices affordable is a priority for the Indian government. The US has a problem with India giving priority to public health over the free market. So there is an ideological conflict here as well. This is another reason why negotiations are stuck. Then after agriculture and medical devices, the next issue is data. India wants data localization. This means India wants sovereign control over the data of its citizens. The United States, on the other hand, wants cross-border data flows. It wants protection for American big tech companies. Because in digital age, whoever controls data controls the future. We often hear the phrase, data is the new oil. So there is also a policy clash between India and the US over data. These are some of the top issues due to which talks between India and the US are stuck, despite Trump calling Modi a friend. Look, personal diplomacy is no doubt important, but it cannot replace institutional diplomacy. It is true that in global politics, leaders try to manage relations through personal diplomacy. Phone calls, informal meetings, handshakes, hugs, and statements about being good friends all help build personal chemistry. But we must remember one thing, leaders will change. What will remain are institutions. You must have heard the phrase, leaders change, institutions remain. Leaders will come and go after elections. Institutions, however, help maintain continuity in relations between countries beyond individual leaders. Because of institutions, stability and predictability are maintained in bilateral relations. Treaties, written agreements, trade deals, and defense mechanisms between two countries all come under institutional diplomacy. Always remember that in geopolitics, personal chemistry between two leaders will never be above national interests. National interest is always supreme. You often see this in practice. Trump may say that Modi is a good man and his friend, but in the same breath, he will say that India is a tariff king. He will say that India must reduce tariffs. He will say that if India buys oil from Russia, he will impose a 500% tariff. So always remember, personal friendship and personal diplomacy have their place, but they cannot override institutional diplomacy and national interests. In talking about national interests, a dominant India is not in America's national interest. The US does not want any country to become so strong that it can act independently of American influence. Whether it is China, Russia, India, or any other country, the logic remains the same. Simply put, the United States does not want a new independent power center. It wants to maintain its dominance over the world. That is why America is uncomfortable with India's growing ability to say no. The United States wants India to remain a rule taker, not a rule maker. It does not want the existing power equation between India and the US to change. The US does not want a strong and independent India. It wants a strong but dependent India. Such an India would be more useful to the United States. With India's help, the US can contain China. So the US wants India aligned with US-led frameworks. That is why when India buys oil and weapons from Russia, the US becomes uncomfortable. The US wants India to buy weapons and energy from America. It wants American companies to benefit, especially the ones who funded Trump's campaign. India, acting like a leader of the global south, maintaining strong ties with Russia and protecting its markets, does not please the US president. Because an empowered India does not suit American preferences. The US does not want India to become fully self-reliant in critical areas. It does not want India to compete with American companies. It does not want Indian firms to challenge US technology and pharmaceutical giants. It does not want India to reduce its dependence on the dollar. It does not want India to demand fair trade rules. Consequently, agriculture, medical devices, and digital taxes have become points of friction. So now do you get why the India-US trade deal has stalled? Disagreements, clash of interests. India's markets are reacting negatively to the stalled trade deal. Investors fear that the United States may impose more tariffs. India already faces 50% tariffs because of oil purchases from Russia. There are threats from the US side to increase this to 500%. Due to fear, foreign investors are pulling out of Indian markets. Markets do not like uncertainty. The uncertainty created by the stalled trade deal will negatively impact India's export-heavy sectors. India is aware of this. So to mitigate the impact, India is diversifying its trade by engaging with Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. India is also moving toward long-term self-reliance. It is not reacting emotionally like the United States. Instead, it is negotiating patiently. India knows that the stalled trade deal will not hurt only India. It will hurt the United States as well. Remember that if tariffs are imposed on India, American consumers will have to pay the price. Inflation in the United States will rise. Gradually, America will lose access to India's massive market. Supply chains will become more dependent on China. America's credibility in the global south will decline. By hurting India, America's own China plus one strategy will weaken. So the US will also have to bear the long-term costs of its actions. It would be wise for the United States to respect India's strategic autonomy. It should not try to treat India like a junior partner. Nonetheless, India will continue to prioritize its national interests. Hopefully, this halt in the India-US trade deal is a temporary pause. In the future, the interests of both countries may align and trade talks may resume. Let's hope at some point sanity prevails in the American administration, that it finds it important to prevent the strategic partnership with India from being completely damaged. By now, you would have understood that the India US trade deal did not stop because of a phone call. It stopped because the interests of India and the United States did not align. And interests did not align because India believes that cooperation with the United States is good and necessary, but it will not come at the cost of India's strategic autonomy. India's self-reliance and strategic autonomy are non-negotiable. So even if the American administration acts emotionally, India will continue to act morally and rationally.